Toon Talk with George Ayoub and Bill Dunn.
Hello again and welcome to Toon Talk from the web studios deep in the bowels of the Grand Island Independent. I'm George Ayoub, senior writer here at the newspaper. With me is editorial cartoonist Bill Dunn, discussing some of the tunes he has put together for the past week. Bill, the first one I think we should talk about, and we might not get to anything else today, is the one about the big screw. This has to do with the case against Abacus Computer Company, and the county had filed suit and ended up getting a $30,000 settlement, but spent $285,000 in the process. And you used a big screw going into the taxpayers to tell the story. Talk a little bit about this.
This was a pretty easy cartoon to do, George, because that's exactly how I felt when I read the story about how this case played out. You got to remember that the county, in effect, won a $30,000 settlement, but the county spent $285,000 to do it, and to which I was wondering, gee, I wonder what defeat would have looked like.
Really?
How much would that have cost?
You would have needed another panel for your cartoons. Did you have a sense, I mean, the whole idea of the screw I think is perfect. I really love that, because if you talk to people around town, that's what they were feeling. Did you have a sense as you watched this case unfold, because this has been going on for several years, as you watched the case unfold, I imagine you had a sense of a cartoon, maybe not the details of it, but what was happening as we went along here? Oh
yeah, I did. I was following it. I was very interested in the case, as I think most people were. It was a high-profile case for the county, but I had no idea that this would be the end result. Right. And this was the very first image that came to my mind, my feeble little mind, as I was assessing this, and so the image came to me right away, and it was a pretty easy cartoon to do.
And it wasn't a cartoon, I think, that, please take this in the right way, it wasn't a cartoon that people needed to figure out either.
No,
you know.
There's not a lot of high intellectual
what does he mean by that
capital
screw,
being
right?
spent on this.
Yeah.
So.
What kind of a reaction are you getting from this cartoon?
Actually, it's been very positive, and people have been actually very supportive of this, saying, boy, they were just as shocked as I was. And I think people are frustrated when they see things like this. They, you know, it's a victory if you're talking in those terms for the county, and it's a victory for the justice system. At the same time, it's going to cost the taxpayers a bundle.
Did you hear from anybody on the county board?
No, I haven't. Some people who prefer to be named, not to be named, called immediately that morning, and were very, very supportive, or the next morning, Monday morning. You know, I liken this case to maybe the Huskers playing a preseason game or an early season game against New Mexico or Western Michigan, and winning the game but losing four or five starters.
Exactly.
It doesn't feel like a victory.
I think too that the idea here, and one of the things that I've always been fascinated about political cartoons and editorial cartoons, is that you take what is really somewhat, we joke about the simplicity of the screw, but you take the principle, the idea of a principle. You know, I think that that's what the county board, actually some of the members talked about. They wanted to kind of use this as a principle that, you know, we're not going to let this slide. We are going to take you to court. What has happened, though, is that it feels like a loss. It feels like a loss. And so the whole idea that an editorial cartoon can take that larger idea and distill it down.
That's right.
This is a great example of that.
That's precisely the goal. You've crystallized it exactly, where you take a very complicated subject and try to reduce it to its very essence.
Do you ever worry about, for example, if I picked the paper up last Sunday and I see this cartoon about the backstory that has taken place over the past 3 years, do you ever worry about that? That readers will look at this and they'll go, "Yeah, I understand that," but they might not understand it with the kind of depth that someone like yourself or anybody who's been, let's say, someone moved here a year ago.
Right.
Is that ever a concern to you?
It is a concern, because it's hard to keep up with stories like this, and I'm in the news business, so it's hard for me to keep up to date with all the nuance and all the subtleties of a case, and I'm certainly not an attorney. so there's lots of issues probably around the case that I would never understand. But for those that are new to the story, yeah, I do worry about that, and that's why I try to have some trigger points or some suggestions as to what's going on here.
Right, I can hold this up. You've added like the Abacus Case that gives
A
somebody
label.
something to go on. So is that the kind of thing that explains a little bit of the story in the back?
Correct.
Right, yeah.
Correct.
I kind of want to see what you're drawing up there in your mind. We're entering the political season. I mean, are we ever out of it? I'm
Not
quite
anymore.
Sure. But elections are moving forward, not only presidential election, but have you started to work on what would be caricatures of candidates that you might use? In,
Absolutely. I've got my sketchbook going, and I'm working on Mike Johans and Scott Klebb, and I've got some Obama and McCain work going.
Of those four, who's the most difficult to draw?
John McCain. In it, I don't know why. It's just that he doesn't have a lot of, or Scott Klebb for that matter. You know, Scott, ask any of the females in my family, and they'll tell you he's rock hard handsome, and but that doesn't really lend itself to the caricature, because with a caricature we like to exaggerate. That's the secret of caricature, is to exaggerate physical features, and there's not a lot to. How can you say too handsome in a caricature? You know, people like me aren't familiar with that.
You could have put him in a T-shirt every time that said "too handsome."
That's
there
right.
You go. That's my 2 cents worth.
That's right. And John McCain is you know, he's kind of jolly to the back, and he's got the bald head, and so I'm working with that, and so it's a lot of fun.
Well, we'll look forward to those. Till next time, this is George Ayoub, senior writer at the Grand Island Independent, with Bill Dunn, the editorial cartoonist, talking cartoons. We'll see you next time on Toon Talk.